Hello and welcome to episode 1173 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Monday, May 8th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, good day, sir.
Good day. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. You know, it's a Monday, so I'm not Garfielding it up and hating Mondays, but you got to get the week started. There's a certain cadence to every day and kicking off the week with a lot of preparation for everything that's coming up. I'm excited for another week of baseball. How was your weekend?
Weekend was pretty good. Another Fabapalooza weekend where other people spent way too much money, and I was like, "Hey, look what I got! My $7 pickups and stuff like that." So
Get your little knick-knack pickups that you're like, I like these.
yeah, I was just talking to Sarah Sanchez for her new fantasy podcast. Literally right before we started recording, and I said, at some point, other people run out of money, right? Like this isn't a credit situation where they can be like, I'm gonna put this on the card and pay it off like next year or something like that. Like,
and you're
at some point, like
everyone in your league has 720 credit too, so you're screwed, man. They're getting funded for 1,200, 1,500 FAAB to your 1,000, so you're in trouble.
It definitely feels that way because I think this is like the third week in a row where people have spent like $300 to $400 on players in my main event.
Say, I did speculate. It didn't affect my bidding at all. I wasn't going super competitive on Miller, and we're going to get into facts and figures here in a moment. But I did speculate, wishcast perhaps, that Bryce Miller's prices might be down a little bit, simply due to the fact that we're getting a hot prospect or three every weekend, and how are people going to still have money? But like you, I quickly learned people still have money, and they're spending it.
Yeah, because I mean, Bryce Miller, and like I said, we're going to talk about it here in a second, but Bryce Miller went for $427 in my league.
Crazy. You were one of the highest leagues. So yeah, we're going to get into that. We'll talk a couple pieces of news. We'll get into the keeps or the pickups of the week for deep leagues, as well as some of the shallow ones. Only a couple repeats, and if we repeat somebody from the last week, moving down from the deeper league to the shallow, there's also a week in data. So we're not just trying to repeat them and say the exact same things. Also curious, how your feelings are changing on that player. Are they worth kind of going into the shallower formats? And then for the first week in a while, maybe all season, I kind of want to say all season, we have a bit of a closer bonanza, so to speak. It's not a Fabapalooza or anything. These aren't named closers, but there really hasn't been much by way of guys popping up for saves. And this week we had 5 guys of note that I want to get into. So we will close with that. But let's start with a pretty decent call up, especially if he can stay hot. I will quickly point out, I'll throw a little cold water on it and say, it's a little Dennis Green. He is who we thought he was in terms of his core skills, but Christopher Morel was called up for the Cubs because he's absolutely tearing the cover off the ball in the minors. Again, still striking out too much. His walk rate is okay. I mean, it was decent last year at 9%. It's actually at 13%. I'm sure he's being pitched around a bit, but his swing and miss is still there in a big way. But a 429 BABIP with a guy who has power and speed leads to a 1156 OPS, 11 homers, 4 steals, 31 runs and ribbies each, not combined. Christopher Morel is just killing it. Where do you balance the fact that he's dominating, he's getting called up, he can play a bunch of spots? I think you might have liked him a little bit before the season, but you can correct me on that.
No.
You didn't. Okay, so you didn't like a guy versus the fact that, yes, he's hot, but again, our biggest concerns are unchanged. What do you think of Christopher Morel coming up for the Cubs?
Christopher Morel had the worst zone contact in all of baseball last year.
There's the reason he moved from 1 to 9. Just want to throw that in as the season went along.
He is the epitome of a quad A player to me. Like I don't think he is going to hit enough regularly to be able to kind of overcome the huge issues with strike zone judgment and swing judgment. And while there is power and there is speed and there will be hot streaks, the problem is this Cubs team is not as bad as it was last year. And if he wants to be anything more than just like a super utility guy, which is, I think, what he's going to be, then he's got to figure out how to make contact in the zone. Because, like, if he's, like, yes, he was super hot in AAA, but if he comes up and hits 210 and is striking out 40% of the time, he's going right back down to AAA. So
I completely agree here with Morel. It is a situation where there's also the fact that the guy that they called up, and we don't have to like save the name, it's Matt Mervis. We're going to talk about him on the pickups as well. He actually blocks off Morel in a way because you can't send Patrick Wisdom over to first, because now first is locked by Mervis, third is Wisdom, and so Morel's actually been playing more outfield in the minors than anything else, and the outfield is probably the strength of this ball club with Happ, Suzuki, and Bellinger. So it is going to be a kind of give everybody a sit, and there's value in that, and you can get enough PT for that with Christopher Morel, kind of playing everywhere. He's not in the lineup today, by the way, I should note, against a righty. So I don't know, man. I think people are going to get excited. I almost wish he'd been called up this weekend and kind of got swept up in everything and overpaid for, because I do think if he has a week of just modest output and playing like every other day, then he'll probably go for fair prices, and I would like to see people kind of overspend on Morel. So this is my warning that, for me personally, I would say be careful. If you need a bat, I'm okay going for him. But if you start pushing beyond, I don't know, what, $50 out of 1,000, I think that's about my limit.
Yeah, I mean, he went for 61 in my league last week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And he was drafted in a lot of leagues, so now available. So he isn't even 100% available, Morel.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, I mean, how much different is he than Ezequiel Duran?
Exactly. And it's just because he's getting called up and hasn't done anything this year. People are going to dream on it. You got to look at the skills and who he realistically is. And Christopher Morel is Ezequiel Duran. That is a perfect comp. We don't even need to expound any further on it. What would you have spent for Ezequiel Duran? Maybe lowered a shred.
I spent $27.
Okay. And I spent something around there too. I also have Ezequiel Duran. And I would say lower it a shred for a lesser team. Cubs are better this year than they were, but I think Texas is better, so maybe lower it a little bit for team context, and then go from there.
That's I think the only difference, I mean, Texas, I think it was Jason that sent us like the text about or the tweet about how good offensively Texas has been to start the season. But Texas has more holes in it, so Duran can find easier paths to playing time. Whereas the Cubs aren't as good as Texas offensively, but they don't have any holes. Like, especially now that Mervis is up, like, I don't know where Morel plays on a regular basis. So I think it has to be the days off. Yeah.
Yep. I think it is the give everyone a day off type of deal there for Christopher Morel. And by the way, I forgot, in Maine, I actually lost Ezequiel Duran in a bid. I got him in another league, but I spent around that 20s area as well that you did. So maybe 50 is even too high for Morel, and that was a number I kind of randomly threw out. Probably wouldn't even pay that much. If he has a hot week, he might get caught up in like a triple digit thing, and you don't want to be in that.
Yeah,
I don't believe you do. Another potential call up that could be fun. He could be this week's big prospect call up, Luis Ortiz for Pittsburgh. I remember drafting him back in the fall. So we're talking November drafts, drafting him because we were assuming like, okay, he got a little taste of the league. He's going to be called up and start the season with the ball club. Well, that was not the case. And by the time draft season rolled around, he was not being drafted at all, Luis Ortiz, for the most part, outside of draft champions, of course. And that's where I got him, so it's like not the end of the world. But I definitely drafted him way too early for somebody who didn't even break camp. Standard pitching prospect, right? Massive stuff, huge velo, big-time slider, doesn't really know where the ball's going all the time. Had a 15% walk rate in the majors last year, down to 9% in AAA so far this year, but it's always been a bit better in the minors. I do think he has command and control issues. I think that's kind of the hurdle for Luis Ortiz, but how excited are you about Ortiz on the Pirates? And it's Luis L. Ortiz, because I believe there's a couple Luis Ortizes out there, so make sure you're getting the right guy. Don't get Nick Allen.
Yeah, this is a real bummer that NFBC has the rule where you can't pick up a guy who wasn't drafted until they debut, because I mentioned Luis Ortiz last week with you on the air, and I said pick him up because he's going to be coming up. I couldn't pick him up in the places where I really would have liked to pick him up in NFBC. I really like Luis Ortiz. Yes, the walks can be an issue, but that part protects him a little bit. That offense is a lot better than we thought it was going to be, right? And so there's actually win potential in Pittsburgh that there isn't in
they are
other
coming
leagues.
Down a little bit though.
Yeah.
This last week was a little bit of a reality check. I kind of want to see how they respond after getting punched.
They also lost like both McCutchen and Bay.
Exactly. And of course Velasquez too. I know that's on the pitching side, not the hitting side, but yeah, they've taken some hits. They've had a little bit of a struggle. I'm eager to see how they bounce back to say we are real, or do they fold and become mediocre as hell. But anyway, about Ortiz.
But I mean, here's the one kind of really nice thing about Luis Ortiz. What is one of the really big downsides of picking up these starting pitchers? These rookie starting pitchers that have been coming up.
The price?
Well, I mean, the price,
or the innings.
Well, it's what we saw with Taj Bradley, right? They can go back down to the minor leagues.
Yes.
The Pirates only have one other starting pitcher on the 40-man roster in AAA. Ooh. Luis Ortiz is not going back down unless Vince Velasquez comes back healthy.
So you're seeing some stability here.
I think there's a lot higher floor in terms of innings than there is on the Mason Millers and even the Bibees and the Logan Allens and the Bryce Millers, because there are no other options for the Pirates right now unless they're going to take someone off their 40-man. Like,
I might not include Bryce in that because he's filling in for somebody who is out for the year in Robbie Ray. Mm-hmm. But I think the other guys do make some sense. The Cleveland guys can almost cannibalize each other, right? They can kind of
they also have Gavin Williams, who at
some
some point is going to
keep tabs on him. He could be every bit as good as the other two, Allen and Bybee. That's the thing. They're such a freaking factory. But I like this call with Ortiz. I like him as well. And the opportunity could be there to really stick for a while here, if not the rest of the season. I think he's definitely 15's viable. I think there's some 12 viability depending on where you're at here. Mm-hmm. We're going to get an opportunity to see him this week. It would be a shorter leash, so thus a lower price that I'm paying for Ortiz and 12s, of course. But I don't even mind putting him in my bid lists here. Obviously, we'll see who all the pitchers are that are available at the end of the week.
The only part that sucks is because the Pirates have a 5-game week and his start is against the Rockies at home. Mm-hmm. He's gonna freaking deal against the Rockies, and then he lines up for a 2-start week that starts off with your Tigers at home next week. He's gonna be super, super expensive. So like, if you're in a league where you've got mid-week pickups or like even daily go grab him now. Because
if you believe in Ortiz, don't wait.
For those of us in weekly leagues, especially like NFBC leagues where you couldn't pick him up over the weekend, the price is gonna be the $400 potentially that we just saw. I will say in my league, Johan Oviedo got dropped in my main. Go pick up Johan Oviedo. The underlying numbers are fine.
I'm an Oviedo guy as well.
And like I said with Luis Ortiz, there's nobody else to replace him. He's going to keep getting run out because they don't have anybody else on the 40-man, or they only have one other guy who I've never even heard of on the 40-man. So go get, if Johan Oviedo got dropped, I literally just wrote him up for my buy low, sell high article for Fantasy Pros. Like, if he gets dropped in your league like he just got dropped in my main event, go grab him.
Yeah, a few bad starts here, but I still like the skills. You're still looking at a 384 FIP, 462 Sierra to his 559 ERA. So, yeah, I think there could be some love there for Oviedo to bounce back. I like that call out. All right, let's get into some pickups here. Let's focus on the deep league guys. These are also, some of these guys are picked up in the shallower formats, but they made the rounds here in the deep leagues. Bryce Miller, we talked about him already. Got some facts and figures with him. Picked up in all the main events, of course, because he wasn't drafted anywhere. And we work with 1,000 budget. And so the max was 468. So your 420 something was not too far off the max. The average was 355. The backups were an average of 305. The low was 192, and it was the only one below 200. Again, reiterate something I said earlier. My take, my guess that Bryce Miller would be a bit lower because people are running out of money was patently false. It simply just was not the case. He was every bit as expensive as these other guys that have come up. It helped that he had a Sunday gem. And Sunday, I wish somebody would study this. You know, what happens to prices with guys who pitch or hit well on Sunday, and it goes through the freaking roof. So that was the case with Bryce Miller. Were you even trying to get him? My guess is obviously no, because you've been talking all season about not spending big bucks like that.
I mean, I put in a triple digit bid on him, but
Okay.
like
200?
Yeah, it was like 117 or something like that. But I wasn't even, like I said, he went for $427 in my league.
He went over 3 in mine. Over 4. Meatball Mafia. Rob DiPietro, 402.
He went for $400 or more in 12 main event leagues. I mean, this was not like an isolated incident of, one or two leagues he went for over $400. And he only went for under $300 in 6 main event leagues.
Yep.
So like,
it was nuts. And again,
which I understand, he was fantastic, and he, like, you could understand it after his first start, because his first start was versus the A's. Yep. But like, then he goes out and just dominates the Astros
on bid day. I mean, I'm telling you, that's adding like $70-$80. I really don't think it's out of pocket to suggest that it was adding that much. Not that people wouldn't have liked him and put big bids, but it added money. I firmly believe that with Bryce Miller.
Now, I'm not as big on Bryce Miller as I was on Bybee or Logan Allen, and so like, for me, like, to spend that kind of money, I feel like is a little bit foolish. I worry that there is going to be homer problems down the stretch for him, especially as things start. Like, he doesn't profile to have like amazing command. He's filling up the zone right now, and he's not walking guys, and so like, maybe he gets away with it once the homers do start coming, because he's not putting 2 guys on base, but he does have like a 90% zone contact rate, which is not what you really want to see, because at some point those hits start to fall. And if he does start giving up home runs, like, this could get ugly quick. But with the landscape of starting pitching in general, I totally understand why people did, because, you know, I talked about this with Jason yesterday. Like, my main event team is in like, I think 3rd place with like 95 points, and I have a 5 ERA and a 140 WHIP. Wow. And that was after like some gem pitching yesterday.
Our teams together would be a super team, because my team sucks, as I've outlined all year. I won't bog you down with that, but the pitching is actually kind of decent. It's the hitting right now. So if we could just combine into a super team, we're ready to go.
I would love that, because if I could have just freaking average ratios right now, I'd probably be like in like the race for an overall or something like that. Yeah. But I just worry that this one could get ugly. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, I mean, like I said, he looked fantastic in both starts. He didn't have command issues.
Is Bryce Miller following in the footsteps of like Logan Gilbert and George Kirby, where he's a real control artist?
I don't think he is.
Okay. I'm only going off of the walk rates specifically. I don't know enough. I mean, I've watched the 2 starts, but I didn't watch Bryce Miller coming up enough to know if that was a trait of his or not.
I mean, our grade has him for a 30 current command and a 40 future command. I think he's much more of a stuff over command guy. So I don't think he is like a Gilbert or a Kirby. But like I said, the command has looked good so far. So like, maybe this was, you know, prospect guys can't get everything right. Like, you know, they do a lot better job than I think they even get credit for.
Oh yeah, it gets better every year, I think. Yeah, the analysis on it.
But I do have some concerns that command may be an issue at some point for him, and then what happens. So
we'll keep tabs on that with Bryce Miller, but obviously the big expenditure, all formats play right now, definitely picking him up and going for Bryce Miller. Let's talk Matt Mervis, who we hinted at earlier. Got the facts and figures on him too. Just these top 2, because these were the real linchpin guys this week, and then didn't do the numbers for everybody. But in the main events, he went in a bunch of them. There were a few where Matt Mervis was kept over from being drafted. People hung on. But he went for 421 as a max, 224 on average with a 173 backup on average, 113 was the low there. So not on that same level as Bryce Miller, but plenty of love for Matt Mervis. We did discuss him on Friday. Were you in on any bidding? Did you pick up Matt Mervis anywhere?
I can't remember if I don't think I won Mervis anywhere, but let me double check to make sure. I think the only places I've got him were the places I drafted him in draft and hold or gladiator type style leagues from the beginning in the season. So I tried. I wanted Matt Mervis, but I also was not going to spend 200 plus on him. And he just went for way too much.
281 in my league, and
he went 272 in mine.
Okay, so right in lockstep with our 2 leagues. I need offense, but I actually don't really need first base. First base corner is kind of locked up. First base corner DH, I'm really kind of locked there. So I couldn't even really use him. So I'm going to spend $200 to not play him. Of course, I'd put him in, but I don't know. I'm still sticking with some other guys. So I kind of need a middle infielder to come up and really pop off.
Yeah, and for me, I could have really used him in my my auction league, my $1,500 auction, because right now I've got Harold Ramirez as my first baseman, who's been really good, but I'd much prefer him to be a guy that can move around my lineup with that outfield eligibility. But I couldn't rationalize spending 200 plus bucks on him, and that's where he went pretty much in every league.
I like Mervis. Again, we talked about him on Friday. You can get the breakdown there, but I just I couldn't see myself spending that kind of money on a first baseman, even someone who I think is going to hit for power and possibly some batting average. So that's Matt Mervis. But yeah, definitely, I think he's also an all formats pickup, particularly if you use CI. If not, there are some 10 teams where maybe he could still linger out there.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But I think 12s, 15s with the CI, you're definitely wanting to pick up Matt Mervis. Let's talk JP France. Kind of a non-prospect here for the Astros. Coverage for Luis Garcia right now, who's obviously out for the year. Came up, had a good outing. Was that on Saturday or Sunday? I think it was
Saturday.
It was Saturday. Okay, so not as impactful. Saturday will improve the bidding too, but just not to the same level as what a Sunday performance will. But he put five scoreless up with 3 hits, a walk, 5 strikeouts at Seattle. Good stuff out of JP France. 28 years old though. Has had good numbers in the minors, usually with a big walk rate. So I think that's kind of the issue that we have to worry about. Looks like there's some swing and miss here. And Houston is a franchise that we kind of, an organization that we trust. Did you have any love for JP France as like a pivot option off of Miller? Because you could get him much cheaper, of course.
So he was a guy that was a bit under the radar, and so much under the radar that I forgot to include him in a rundown on Sunday. But I did put some bids on him and got him in a couple leagues, including TGFBI, where I got him for like $27 with a $1 backup bid. And so I was a little surprised. I was able to get him. He's got really good stuff. The question is going to be, and Eno even tweeted this out, that like in AAA he had top 20 starter stuff, but the command is a big issue.
Yeah.
So I took the gamble on him because he was a lot cheaper, and because Houston's rotation is currently being held together by duct tape.
Yeah, we're going to get into another guy a little bit later. Actually, we can just move him up and talk Brandon
Bielak
at the same time. Why not? So, did you have
Bielak? Bielak is like the exact opposite, right? Like he's
command and control. Yep.
He does not have he has stuff minus, while France has stuff plus, but he's got really good command and control, and so in leagues where there isn't a lot out there, Bielak becomes a little bit more interesting, in 15-team leagues, because I think there's a much better chance he sticks in the rotation because there'll be less blow-ups. But the upside is not super interesting. I don't think he even profiles at best as a top 50 starter in fantasy. So whereas France, if he can even just get by with his control and command, I think France could be really, really interesting rest of the way. So I was more interested in France, but Bielak was in my waterfalls. He was just below France, so I ended up with France more often.
Okay, I think that's totally fine there. Again, I really wasn't, don't need a rundown of whether or not I bought those guys. I didn't, but they both interest me. Again, Houston's one of those teams that I do give trust to, pardon me, just gasp some air there. Inherently kind of believe in some of their pitchers. I'm always looking to give a second look there. France definitely the more encouraging option there because of strikeout stuff. It plays more in fantasy.
Neither were my top pickup of the week in terms of pitching, and that guy isn't even on the list, so it's fine.
Who was?
I got Johnny Brito in like every league.
Oh, okay. Well, we can talk Johnny Brito. Let's talk Johnny
Brito. I mean, he's got to start. He's got to start against the A's. That's
against Oakland.
What it was. Yeah. So it's just a short-term stream pickup, and I think he lines up for a 2-step next week. So he pitches well against the A's, and I keep him, and then and if he doesn't, then I don't.
Okay. No, nothing else you want to say about him? I mean, he's had starts. He's had he had a little fall off.
He's been up and down, but like.
He's a classic streamer.
Yeah,
right?
he's a perfect streamer, and nothing is like there's no better stream than against the Oakland A's.
Exactly, and then like you said, well, how good would he have to be for you to start Johnny Brito at Toronto at Cincy? That's the 2-step.
Oh,
is there anything you can do against Oakland? Because it's still Oakland.
Is Vlad Guerrero healthy? Like did he hit the IL or is he just still day to day? I don't even know.
I think it's just day to day right now. Would that change it enough to get you anyway?
It depends on how good he is against the A's.
Will be reevaluated Tuesday. So yeah, I mean with Brito, I don't think he can do enough against the A's for you.
It really depends on what my other options are. Like
also
to be quite honest,
also
yeah.
True. Worthy stream though. I think you were right to pick him up. So let's talk about those A's and JP Sears. Because he's another guy who's been getting picked up here and there, still making some deep league rounds, making some shallow league rounds here and there. He gets a 2-step this week. He's coming off of another good start. He had the 11K start against Texas where he did allow 4 runs. So like ERA-wise, it wasn't good, but I'm always impressed by 11Ks. Even if you give up a few extra runs there, that kind of spoil it from being a quote-unquote quality start. And then he got beat up by the Angels, which there's really no shame in that. They're a good team. Mm-hmm. It was really one bad inning. I watched that start because Ohtani was pitching in there. And it really was just the one bad inning that got Sears. But, hey, those runs count the same. It just wasn't a labored struggle. And he bounced back with a beautiful start, 6 innings scoreless against Seattle with 7K. So now we've seen 3 good out of his last 4. Is JP Sears coming up on a 2-step, somebody that gave you any interest this week? He goes to New York, which isn't as scary. That's at the Yankees, and home to Texas. What do you think of JP Sears?
I picked him up in a couple leagues, and I'm rolling with it. It's super risky, and you probably shouldn't roll with it. Only because I know that the A's just got their first win for a starter.
Yeah. Didn't they get 2 in a row?
They might have, yeah.
I think they had, none all year. I think I heard this on the Sunday night RotoWire. None for the whole year, and then bam, bam, 2 in a row. Just the way baseball always works with weird shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, it feels super risky, especially the Yankees are getting Aaron Judge back, most likely for his start.
Are they getting him today? Because today is the Sears start. So if it's not
no. So it's tomorrow. So
we're good then.
I think Judge is they're saying tomorrow he should be back as long as
Sears is a full go today then.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm rolling him out there because it's either that or keep rolling out Brady Singer, who just is murdering me. But
dude,
I mean, I'll eat the crow. I was wrong.
Get into him.
I was wrong on.
Yeah, I don't know who saw this coming. You could say you didn't believe in Brady Singer. That's fine.
But this is the issue with 2 pitch pitchers, right? Is if you don't have one of your pitches and he's had issues with fastball command,
he got nothing going.
Then you've got nothing. Then you are a bad 1-pitch pitcher, and that's what it's been. So
I think what it boils down to as well is that last year was the max of what his skills generate as opposed to a new level, and I think a lot of us wanted to believe it was a new level. Yeah. As opposed to just the high-end range of being Brady Singer. And this year's kind of a low-end range because he has a 1-9 homer 9. But anyway, Sears, I have a quick question for you. Sorry to make it too me-centric. I'm not trying to commandeer this, but Patrick Sandoval against Houston or JP Sears?
I'll take JP Sears.
15-teamer. I think so too, man, because Sandoval, man, talk about a headache of watching somebody. Do not ever watch his starts unless you've got the acid control, the Pepto on hand, because my goodness, is it maddening to watch him throw 712 balls.
I thought you were going to say, unless you're taking acid, don't watch him start.
Unless you, also viable. Yeah. If you're taking acid and you just want to see that ball floating, that change up dying, and you're like, whoa, man, that looks awesome. That works too. But those are the only ways that I would watch Patrick Sandoval. And this comes from a Patrick Sandoval believer.
You're a Patrick Sandoval guy. Like, this is coming from it for you.
Big time, and this is killing me.
I'm not a Patrick Sandoval guy, and no, I do not want to watch
turning.
him.
I am turning because, like, right now, you're not even getting the Ks. And it's a mess.
He's a whip murderer. Like, he's not even a killer. He's a serial killer of whips.
That's true. But at least he's salvaging it with the lucky ERA. The problem is that will dry up.
Yeah.
He's a 2.93 ERA right now, Patrick Sandoval does. That will dry up if he keeps walking an 11% clip and giving up hits the way he is. So I'm holding him, but I'm not necessarily starting him. But let's stay in Oakland. Believe it or not, we got 2 Oakland guys of some note to talk about here. We talked about JP Sears. Let's go to the hitting side. Speaking of guys I'm a fan of, JJ Bleday. They scooped him up in, I believe, that AJ Puck deal, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
And, he's gone down to the minors and really changed himself. 7 homers, that's not the difference. Power's kind of been his game. But not striking out with some tangible changes. A 13% K rate, down from 28% with Miami last year in the majors and 27% in the minors. So he was the same guy, majors, minors. But also a 9% swinging strike rate, which is a 3-point dip on where he has been the last year plus. So that is a tangible dip. Is that enough to get you interested in JJ Bleday on the A's?
I mean, I was a Bleday guy. I was really kind of bummed when he didn't make the opening day roster. I thought
going to Oakland. Sorry to interrupt you. I thought going to Oakland would guarantee him.
I did too. And
how do you not make Oakland's roster, dude? But hey, maybe they had plans for this. We make fun of teams that say they got to work on something or whatever when a guy's like ready. But maybe they did have plans for him to work on a swing change because we're seeing the fruits of it with Bleday.
Yeah.
At least early on.
The question is, how much will he play? Is he a strong side platoon guy? Right now, that's what it looks like.
That's okay, though, in a 15-teamer.
But you want a strong side platoon guy playing in Oakland.
I know.
Like
that.
No,
you're right.
And so, he wasn't, he was in my waterfalls, but he was not a guy that was, very high up. I grabbed Tyrone Taylor over him and other, even though I think Taylor might even be a short side swing guy, but I think there is potential, better team potential for him to get an everyday role at some point, especially with injuries. And if he does do that, then he becomes a lot more interesting. So I like Bleday, but if he's playing against lefties, I haven't looked at.
He's not starting today against one, and they had one yesterday. So it's 2 lefties in a row. No Bleday.
Yeah.
He is in a strong side platoon. You're right, and on Oakland, you're exactly right. It's one thing to be a strong side platoon on. I was gonna say Houston. I know they're not playing at their peak, but a good team. Which is whatever, any good team. But on Oakland, you're dead right. I think that's only then.
Yeah,
20-team mixer type.
I think in some 15-team mix where, in NFBC or daily moves, where you can really maximize some of those plate appearances.
Yeah,
because hey, we've got 3 righties coming up this weekend. I can put him in type thing. That then he makes a little bit more sense. But in your standard weekly league, him sitting 3 times a week, is not on Oakland is not going to do much.
No, that's really tough. And for those that don't know, you make 2 offense moves in NFBC leagues, Monday through Thursday, and then the weekend, Friday through Saturday.
I love it.
It really helps things, and it changes the dynamic of how you can run hitters and platoon or stream hitters. And right now, I think you would start Bleday because yes, there's a lefty today, but then 3 righties. But then on the weekend, it's left, right, left. No shot you're starting him there. So that's a good call out. I do think there is some streamer ability in a 15-team mix. You're right. But if you're having to put in a starting outfielder in a 15-team, Bleday can't be your guy. I think if you have to start him every day, that has to be AL only. Let's go ahead and move Tyrone Taylor up a little bit, a couple spots, because we were going to talk about him since you brought his name up and you valued him over Bleday. I totally get that from a standpoint of playing time right now because he is playing against righties. kind of stuff that he's done in the majors, so track record a little bit, and of course team quality, which he blows it out of the water because he's just not on Oakland, right? It doesn't really matter where he is. For those that don't know, of course he's in Milwaukee, but it doesn't matter where you are as long as it's not Oakland. Off to a slow start in 6 games. I don't really care about 19 plate appearances. Talk to us about why you liked Tyrone Taylor a bit in the bids this week.
Because he's shown power and speed, and Joey Weimer is not like he's kind of been who we thought Joey Weimer could be, which is a guy who has power and speed but strikes out too much. And so, because Taylor can play center, I think there is, if he can hit a little bit better, I think he could like kind of take over center field if they decide they want to send Weimer back down. So, which I think is a possibility if Weimer continues to struggle to make contact.
It's Weimer.
Or sorry, Weimer.
Just FYI. Old Weems has a 70 WRC plus, to your point.
Yeah. There's been a little bit of pop in, 5 stolen bases for him. But I think Taylor, I don't know. It was a $7 bid. Like it was like, like 4th or 5th guy in my waterfall. But I'll take it and see if I can roll with it for a week or 2. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll move on to the next guy.
That's the thing. When you're spending that kind of money, which is not a lot, these are streams. These have a finite amount of time. You're not, and I think I've talked about this on the show a bit because I know I've talked about it in my chat. We get too hung up on rest of season for guys and for different plays. It's like, not everyone is rest of season. That's true.
Yep.
So then don't get focused on that. Where are you at for the next 3 to 6 weeks with somebody? That's what you want to really focus on with a lot of players. Of course, you're putting $400 on somebody like Bryce Miller. Okay, that has to have some long-term viability because you're spending 40% of your budget. But you're spending $7 out of $1,000 on Tyrone Taylor. He could give you a homer and a steal this week, and that's more than worth it. So.
Yeah.
You buying into the Marcell Ozuna power surge at all? He was a popular pickup this week. He now has 6 homers, still only a 70 WRC plus himself, but quality plate skills, believe it or not, 14% walk rate, 22% K rate, a 109 BABIP. Surely that has to come up, right? Like, is there? Listen, I know he's off the field, not a good dude. I know people are probably screaming at their device saying that guy's a piece of shit, though. I get that, and if you want to play with no pieces of shit on your team, fine. But he is getting picked up. Marcell Ozuna is out there. Do you think that there is an upside here with that BABIP progressing, given the rest of his skills and the power that he's currently surging with?
Yeah, I mean, even over the last 2 weeks, where a lot of this hot, kind of streak is coming from, he's still got a 190 BABIP. Like, he's hitting 258 over the last 2 weeks, but with a 190 BABIP.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's part of the issue of why the BABIP is so low. He is making better decisions, especially outside the zone, which is a really good sign. Now, he's not making like elite zone contact or anything like that. It's like around league average, over this hot stretch. So like, I don't think he's like going to turn in like back into the Marcell Ozuna of old, but like, could he be 80% or 75% of what he was at one point? Yeah, and that's a pretty valuable player, especially in 15-team leagues. So, and in spite of the fact that he is a garbage person and has been a garbage player offensively and defensively, the Braves have weirdly stuck with him. So
they really have, and I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to like speculate about the off-field stuff because I don't know, but usually you'd think.
I was surprised when he didn't get just cut.
Because the sad reality we know is that like your leash is as long as your quality is to the team,
absolutely,
right? Like they jump through hoops to keep you when you're a superstar, but same infraction or even a lesser infraction of a bad player, and you're out with yesterday's paper type of deal. So that has been kind of an interesting thing about the Ozuna situation. That
especially it's not like they have a dearth of talent. Like they're
freaking Braves. So who even knows there?
I think it's just like maybe sunk cost fallacy. But either way, if they're giving him the run when he's awful, like they're going to continue to give him the run when he's not awful. And so, yeah, I think he was a worthy gamble. Again, another guy who was in my waterfall that I just didn't end up with because I wasn't willing to spend more than, like $10 on the guy. So I don't know. I guess he's fine.
There could certainly be a surge there. He was pretty cheap, though. We talk about BABIPs, and here's the thing. Even if it regresses to what Marcell Ozuna has done the last 2 years, it's only going to go to 250. But again, is at 109 right now.
Yeah.
So that would still be, if the bottom line gets to 250, well, then that's a big surge. But even if he just hits a 250 BABIP from here forward, and he's like a 230, 220 average with a bunch of homers, there can be some value there. So I see why he was picked up. That makes sense to me. What about Maikel Garcia over in Kansas City? Definitely like a speed play type. Did you have any interest in him? I know there was rumblings of him breaking camp. It didn't end up happening, of course. He goes down to AAA, and he's already up with 2 steals, by the way, just like real quick, bang, bang. Did get 4 in the minors, but he was 4 for 7, so he was going maybe a little aggressively. But looks like kind of a slap type hitter with some speed and some defense. Maikel Garcia, any interest for KC, 23 years old?
Yeah, I had a lot of interest. Unfortunately, he went for triple digits in my auction and like $80 in my main. I got him in one of my OCs for like, I don't know, $30 or something like that. I think he's going to play really regularly. And at third base, where he's going to pick up eligibility, so he's going to have short and third eligibility,
and be corner too.
Yeah, and be a speed asset. And I mean, he's replacing Nicky Lopez, who's out with appendicitis right now. So Lopez is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. I think there's a real possibility, and I maybe even call it a probability as opposed to a possibility, that he just replaces Nicky Lopez. This is a Wally Pipp situation, and Garcia becomes a
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Hall of Famer guy now. But a guy who, he could legit steal 25 plus bags the rest of the way. So
definitely,
if in terms of fantasy, there's a lot of fantasy value to be had with Garcia. He's got a pretty good hit tool. I don't think there's a ton of power, especially in that park, but I think Garcia could be a really, really nice fantasy pickup. And with that increased eligibility once he gets third base, that is super, super valuable, especially with the amount of injuries everybody's dealing with right now. So, I like Garcia a lot. I wish I had been able to get him for a little bit cheaper than he went for, but I wouldn't spend triple digits on it.
No, I think that's fair too, about not wanting to spend triple digits on Maikel Garcia. If people are that desperate for the speed, I get it, because he does have some big upside there, but I pretty much agree with everything else you say, including that he could soak up that playing time real quick, and all of a sudden they look up. Nicky Lopez looks up when he gets back, and he's out of a job. Hunter Dozier also got to be looking over his shoulder. He's kind of on a short side platoon right now. Nick Pratto also out in KC. Remember, got to rewind back to about last winter, but at that point, Nick Pratto was way ahead of Vinny Pasquantino in prospect world. Vinny Pasquantino was this off the radar, you had to be a prospect hipster to even kind of know who he was. Nick Pratto was like this, dude, ready to be top 40, top 50 type. And they've taken obviously quite different paths since then. And Pratto had a really bad year last year, particularly at the major league level. He was fine in the minors. And then this year started off pretty poorly in AAA. Again, 81 plate appearances. We're not going to overly parse that. 173 BABIP. He's come up so far. He's doing his thing, heavy swing and miss, riding a crazy 545 BABIP. So his BABIP progression is coming in the form of his major league work so far. But he's got a homer. Is Nick Pratto somebody that interests you? He's playing some outfield and first base, left and first right now.
Yeah. So he has gone from being a bit too aggressive to being maybe even a bit too passive. I know people are going to see that 37% strikeout rate and go, "Oh, he's just the same old Nick Pratto," but it comes with an 11% or almost 12% swing strike rate. So he's actually, when he's striking out, it's because he's being too passive in the zone. and he's actually making a good amount of zone contact and only swinging outside the zone about a quarter of the time, which is, below league average or better than league average.
Yeah.
Is what I should say. So
it's hard to some of those numbers like where you want to be lower.
So things are actually look really kind of nice for Nick Pratto, and the question will be, will they continue to let him play? Because they're going to want to play Sal Perez at DH. Vinny P is going to play every game he plays at first base, and so Pratto's only option is in the outfield, and I guess he's played 7 games.
No. See, here, they can work it like this.
Oh,
Melendez outfield, Perez catching, Pasquantino DH, Pratto first. So there's a world where all 4 of them can still play pretty comfortably. Because Melendez is a wretched catcher. Melendez can't. Melendez probably won't be catching, soon. Like, he's just not really good at it. And he's such a good, or can be such a good hitter that I think is got more value not being behind the dish anyway to the Royals.
Yeah, and unless he's turned it around recently, Melendez has just been a tremendous hitter. He's
not hitting very well this year. That's why I said he can be a good hitter, because he is not currently showing it with a 72 WRC+.
Though, he's been better as of late, which isn't saying a ton.
Sure,
over the last
where
2
he's
weeks.
Coming from.
Yeah, over the last 2 weeks in 238, but that has boosted up his average quite a bit, because it was really, really bad at one point. So, I think Pratto's really interesting. And right now, the Royals have a lot of injuries in that outfield. So, Kyle Isbell got hurt. To the point where they had to bring Nate Eaton back because he was the only person who could really play center.
Because I think Pratto Waters earlier too. Earlier.
Waters got hurt in spring training. Waters is working his way back. So there may be kind of a short leash for Pratto, but I think he can hit and maybe find a way to keep a role on this team.
Okay. I could certainly see that. Again, he was the big time prospect. I certainly give some credence to prospect status, at least for a bit. We're 7-8 years into somebody's career and they've shown themselves not to be any good. I don't still lean on their prospect status, but Pratto is still an MLB baby.
I hope he turns into a star, because I've been holding on to him in a couple dynasty leagues, and just by sheer like stubbornness, and I'm really hoping,
I'm committing.
Yeah, I can try to flip him at some point, or maybe he turns into a good player for me. So
I have some bias toward Pratto because he plays very well in not MLB the show, in out of the park baseball. He simulates very well. Regularly becomes a premier power hitter. So I'm always like, well, Nick Pratto's a beast, and then I look at his major league numbers and I'm like, well, not yet at least. What about another speed guy? I kept the 2 KC guys together, but we could have talked about Enmanuel Valdez right after the Maikel Garcia chatter, because this is another speed guy. He's got 3 steals on the year. They picked him up from Houston last year, and I believe the Christian Vasquez deal. And Enmanuel Valdez has hit pretty well right now. He's riding a hot BABIP at 379, but it's yielding a 324, 342, 486 slash line. Do you have any love for Enmanuel Valdez, who's playing and running?
I need to go and look at the situations in which he's stole, because he is not fast.
Okay.
He is not.
I was judging off of the 3 steals. Pardon me on that.
So I think this is one of those situations where it's really important to kind of dude's got 3 stolen bases. Is hey, he's a burner.
I didn't bid on him, so I didn't do a deep dive or anything. Pardon me on that by calling him a speedster.
Yeah,
I went solely off the 3 SBs. That's my fault.
Yeah, he had a total of 8 stolen bases between 3 stops in the minor leagues last year. But you got to wonder how much of that is just taking advantage of bad hitting. His sprint speed is 17th percentile, and he has a grade of 30 speed in our prospect report.
And he's actually got more pop. Enmanuel Valdez had 28 homers across the AA and 2 AAA levels that he hit last year. So different player type than I thought.
So maybe he offers kind of some chip-in stolen bases. If he has 3 stolen bases rest of the way, I'm actually going to be a little bit surprised. And maybe offers a little bit of pop. Like, I think he's going to get a chance to play, but he really profiles, I think, mostly Valdez as a sum of all parts kind of guy, as opposed to
a little bit of everything.
It does a little bit of everything, but nothing particularly well. And maybe he holds on to the job, but I doubt it. Like, I don't know. I think it's kind of not worth much of anything.
Okay. Enmanuel Valdez, just a name that was popping up. And that's the thing too. Half of their IL is guys who could play second base. Arroyo, Mondesi, Yu Chang, Trevor Story. So obviously they're coming back in different parts of the season, but it will be tough for Valdez to hold on. Now he is a utility type. He can bounce around, but it looks like he'll probably always be scrapping for some PT. So probably a short-term pickup this week then, if anything there. And do not rely on him for steals, because that is not part of his game normally. Gavin Sheets, an old friend, man. I was a big Gavin Sheets guy last year, and I think did he end up reaching 20 homers? No, he had 15.
No.
So like there were bouts of like, oh, Gavin Sheets, he was a hot pickup like 3-4 different weeks last year, and that's what he is right now. He's kind of in another zone. I would imagine they have a decent bit of righties coming up because he is a platoon guy. In fact, they have all righties in a 7-game week. That's why Gavin Sheets comes up. What do you think of the power platoon guy? Do you think he was worth picking up this week because of that schedule friendliness?
Well, and the fact that like the White Sox are beat up once again. They're missing both Moncada and Jake Berger, and now Eloy for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Like, so there
also
are
appendectomy, by the way. You mentioned Nicky Lopez's. That's also what Eloy's going through.
Yeah,
awesome.
We talked about that a little bit yesterday. Just snake bit, dude.
Big time.
So, I mean, at least this time it wasn't his fault necessarily, right? Like, you just can't.
It's still missed time, but you can't put that on the check mark of like this dude's injury prone. Like,
especially now because he doesn't have another appendix to lose. Like, this isn't like
so it won't threaten him again in the future.
Yeah, if anything, this should make him less right.
This clears the runway now, dude.
He has one less vital organ to hurt. Like,
exactly, it's fantastic.
But yeah, I mean, for Sheets, it's going to be about opportunity. Like, he is usually a pretty decent hitter as a strong side platoon guy when he has opportunity. Right now he's got opportunity and probably does for the next 4 to 6 weeks with Eloy out. So I think you kind of play the matchups with him. I'd rather have him than these, Bleday, I guess, because I know that he's probably, he's at least on a better team in a better part. So, I don't know. I like Bleday a lot. It's close. I think you make the argument.
I really like Bleday, but I'm a big
because
Sheets
Bleday,
guy.
you could
think I'm Sheets.
I think you can make the argument it should be Bleday only because once Eloy comes back, like, Bleday is still going to be playing, right? And there is a scenario in which they go, all right, we're going to give Bleday a chance to hit lefties and see what happens, right? What do we have to lose? Just more games, right? And that's what Oakland does best anyway. So,
true.
It's close, but I think maybe I do give Bleday a little bit of an edge.
This would go back to what I was saying earlier, though, about not thinking too far in the future. If we're just looking at the next 4 to 6 weeks, which is the time that Eloy's down, then I would go Sheets. If we expand it out further, I think you do start to push maybe a little bit more of a Bleday thing, especially if you're talking keeper because of the age relativity and the fact that
I think the deeper the league, maybe I lean Bleday because there's less to replace in the waiver wire. But if you're like looking to stream in a 12-team league, then you go Sheets because there's another Bleday on the waiver wire in that 12-team league to pick up once Sheets lose playing time.
I think that makes sense. And, as a streamer, Sheets can rock for a week. Blast in righties for a week. He could play like anybody, any stud in a 12-teamer there.
I also think, I think we talked about this in preseason or in draft season. The Central doesn't have a lot of lefties.
No, it's a good, and there might be some adjustment because rotations change, but we did do that assessment, and it really wasn't that bad for AL Central left-handed batters. So that's a good call. Speaking of studs, Dylan Carlson getting picked up because he's an absolute monster of a player. Justin can't stand Dylan Carlson. I still love Dylan Carlson. He is playing better of late, but the bottom line numbers still aren't great. But he's the center fielder right now. So I think this is a playing time play more than anything else. That's why he's getting picked up in deeper leagues. I know you're not a big fan, so maybe advise others, not yourself. He's played every game the last week that I can see here on Roster Resource. Any interest in Dylan Carlson?
Yes, I do have some interest because the underlying skills are showing really good improvements. He's hitting the ball harder. He's making better zone contact, and that defense matters, right? Especially when you've got a pitching staff that is struggling and being let down by their defense. I think Dylan Carlson is a really interesting pickup. The problem becomes, I don't know what the hell they're doing in St. Louis. I talked about this yesterday with Jason, because moving Wilson Contreras to DH takes away a spot for other guys, which means guys like Dylan Carlson, guys like Nolan Gorman, guys like Juan Yepes.
I think it screws Gorman the most because he's nicked right now. And I don't think he is playing second base again, but he maybe shouldn't be because of his back. Carlson being the center fielder really helps, though, because Donovan, you're not putting in center. You're not putting Burles in there. I think you can stretch Newt, but Carlson's just clearly a better center fielder. So that helps him right now, and that's why he's playing every day, because they hate Tyler O'Neill, who was also...
I think ultimately just hurts everybody.
You're right.
Especially, once Tyler O'Neill comes back, they'll have to figure out a spot for Tyler O'Neill, too.
On another team is the spot.
They should. Why won't they just trade someone?
I don't know. Hey, he was in their division. They didn't see that Wilson Contreras can't catch very well. Are they stunned by this?
I know he hasn't been great, but he is not the reason they are losing. This is not a Wilson Contreras issue.
The thing of it is, though, you need a premium framer with that pitching. So it is kind of on him, but it's also on them for not planning that, right? You need the transition from Yachty to the next guy to be a premium guy, I believe, because of the way your system is set up. So no, he hasn't been killer. He's not the worst guy in the league. Shea Langoliers couldn't frame a fucking photo. It's unbelievable how bad he is. He is by far the worst.
So don't ask Shea Langoliers to frame the poster I just got.
Bro, yeah, exactly. If you're over at the Kinko's or whatever and you're getting something
and Shea Langoliers is there,
go next in line, wait, go look at the envelopes and say, no, I want to look at this. You can help the next person and wait for somebody else, because you do not want Shea Langoliers.
Go over to Maikel's as opposed to
exactly. On the framing numbers, minus 1.9 for JT Realmuto, the low, and he's second lowest, and then it's Shea Langoliers minus 5.2. That disparity is insane, and that's among qualified catchers. So anyway, and for context, Contreras is minus 1.0. So he's not the worst. But I do think you need an absolute monster there to maximize these finesse guys. And that's why they should have just stuck with the original plan, which was to get Sean Murphy, because guess who's leading the MF in league? Sean Murphy. It's funny, though. Number 2 in the league is his brother. Maybe you got to call little bro and say, what are the tricks over there in Milwaukee? How did they make your ass a good catcher? Because you used to suck at that. But they have a factory. Go watch the Foolish Baseball video on the Milwaukee Catching Factory, because they did it with Omar Narvaez too. So anyway,
Jonathan LaCroix, remember?
Lucroy became an absolute
back
god
in the day.
So I don't think it's all Contreras' fault. I think it's more their fault, but they needed a premium catcher there, and so they set him up for failure, because the simple fact is he's just not that good at it. So you're right. Your main point about fantasy is how it hurts everybody. Maybe Kisner and Trace Barrera playing more does help the pitchers a little bit, though, right? So the offensive players are hurt by Contreras pushing to DH and taking more playing time from those guys. But as far as the catcher change, maybe this helps the pitchers a little bit.
Maybe, who's it going to help, though? Maybe it helps Jack Flaherty a little bit. Steven Matz is bad. Steven Matz is
coming from you. That's interesting. We've had a turn of heart.
He's just bad, and Matthew Liberatore is not bad and should just be in the rotation. Wainwright is just Wainwright. He's not good anymore. This is not
he's fine though, right? Oh, by the way,
I guess for Michaelis, maybe for Michaelis and for Flaherty, but Flaherty might just be bad too.
That's true. His command is pretty rough. But I mean, I think they need every little help they can get. By the way, Kisner 10th. Once you do unqualified, so even with fewer innings, this is a cumulative stat here with the framing. So the more volume, the better. Well, I guess it depends how well you're doing. But in 105 innings, he's ranking 10th, so he is really tangibly helping the pitchers there. But
can I just say though, like, and maybe this is like, I just came off of Sarah Sanchez's podcast, and I shouldn't like talk bad about these guys, but have the Cubs really lost any of the, like, from losing those guys that they didn't, like, Bryant hasn't been good and got a big contract.
I mean, look at the
Contreras has been fine
careers.
offensively,
but look at Baez the time of their careers.
Baez has been atrocious.
Baez has been a nightmare, and Rizzo's super replaceable. Like, not in the clubhouse. He's a leader through and through. But as far as like his production, like, would that have changed their fate?
People roasted the Cubs front office on letting these guys just walk, and it may actually turn out to have been, in fact, the actual correct decision.
Might be the best of the bunch with Pete Crow Armstrong, who is a premium defender. So definitely, you make a good point there. All right, Chase Silseth is our last guy for the deep league. I only bring him up because I wonder if you think he might take the rotation spot from Jose Suarez, who got blown up
and hurt
and nicked. Yes, so now he is on. Is he on the IL?
No, he's day to day. I didn't see an update as of last night. Like, I dropped Suarez in every league.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you, man. It's
he was on my bench for that game anyways, so it didn't hurt me. But he got dropped.
15-day IL about 10 minutes, literally 11 minutes ago. So with shoulder discomfort. So do you think Silseth gets that gig? He's on the team already. Tucker Davidson's there, Jaime Barria, so there's a couple other options. But I'm a Silseth guy. He hasn't shown a ton at the major league level in terms of his skills, but I've watched him a bunch, so I'm kind of clouded by that. I'll put that bias on the table. You watch a guy, you remember snapshots of the good. I've seen plenty of the bad though too. What do you think Silseth can be? What kind of league pickup are you picking him up in, if at all?
I mean, I don't think he's like a super interesting guy. He doesn't have like one pitch that really stands out to me. He doesn't have great command.
Shows flashes. It's definitely one of those things where it's like in and out, and the inconsistency is the problem, right? Because like you say show flashes, or I say show flashes, but most guys do. That's why they're in the freaking majors. So it's not, in fairness, like it's not even really saying that much to say somebody shows flashes. That's how you get to the majors. You got to show something. But it's just inconsistent right now. So I think he's like a streamer at best, 15-team style.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, like, right now he's like kind of throwing 50% fastballs and kind of just mixing in his secondaries. I'd almost rather see him kind of try to bring that under 50%. And
he did that last year.
And he did that last year, yeah. The fastballs look good, actually. It's not necessarily look good, but it's played well so far. So we'll kind of see how long it goes. I just feel like that's going to get beat up around. I think he needs to be a guy that kind of pitches backwards a little bit more to be effective at the major league level.
I can see that. Chase Silseth gets a trip to Cleveland this weekend. I wouldn't mind necessarily starting that. But not somebody that
Cleveland's got some struggling offensive players now.
Yes, they do. But a traditional streamer, if you start Silseth here, I'm probably cutting him against Miami, and you're never getting two steps because of the way
you're not starting him against Miami?
Minnesota is what I said. What I meant to say. I said Miami. Minnesota, I would definitely start him against Miami.
I would cut him against Minnesota.
Minnesota, I would pass. All right, some shallow guys. A couple guys that we talked about last week. Kind of want to get an update on them. Let's start with one of those guys, LaMonte Wade Jr. We talked about late night Lamont last week. He is now making his way to the to the shallow league format because he's leading off every day against righties and batting but batting ninth against lefties. But at least he's getting that volume in there. And you had some glowing things to say about late night Lamont last week. Do you agree with picking him up in shallower formats now? Because we both co-signed picking him up in the deeper leagues.
Yeah, I tried to get him in a number of leagues this week, wasn't able to, and so I still only have the one draft champions share. But you gotta love what you're seeing from him because on top of like showing really good contact within the zone, he's hitting lefties, and that was kind of always like one of the big issues with him was he didn't hit lefties, so he wasn't going to play against them. Now you're talking about a guy who plays at a bad hitter's park only, part of the time. There are a lot of lefties in the NL West. But because he's hitting lefties right now, he's playing every day. The Giants don't have the depth to platoon him, even if I think they wanted to. So I like LaMonte Wade Jr. quite a bit as long as he's healthy, and right now he's healthy.
Yep, co-sign that. Think you're picking him up in 12s, maybe an occasional 10 with 5 outfielders right now, but probably just 12s. But definitely somebody that I do think is adding to his stock for sure. You mentioned Ezequiel Duran earlier, and we kind of talked about him. He's now making his way down. I think you're going to co-sign this at least a bit because you pointed out how even when Corey Seager gets back, there's ways for him to find value by just playing somewhere every day and bouncing around pretty nicely. What do you think of Ezequiel Duran?
I mean, this is, the Christopher Morel kind of framework, which is I see ball, I swing at ball. Right now it's working. I don't anticipate it's going to work super well for an entire season, but you kind of ride with it until the strikeouts really start becoming an issue and he loses playing time. But there's power and speed, and right now there's opportunity. So I have him in a couple leagues. I'm continuing to use him in those leagues. And as soon as those strikeouts come back to haunt him, I'll probably drop him for another guy. But I think you just ride the wave for right now.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair with Ezequiel Duran. Like I said, I did get him in one league, missed out on the main. But I think he's worth definitely playing right now, especially on that Texas team, which I really like. I think they're a sneaky good offense, and they don't even have Corey Seager right now. Another Ezequiel Tovar got cut a bunch, understandably, because he got off to a brutal start. In fact, his numbers still look like shit right now. But he was worthy enough to pick up from a bunch of folks, and moving down into some shallow format pickups. What do you think of Ezequiel Tovar?
All right, so this is really interesting because Tovar is one of those guys that I think some people were really, really high on. I was kind of tepid on him. I wasn't out necessarily because it was a full-time job in Colorado. And he's been extremely hot over the last 2 weeks, hitting 326, 356, 628, 2 home runs.
God, how bad was the beginning portion of the season?
It was
that only
really
has him up to 243.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. The problem is he's doing the Ezequiel Tovar thing, or the Ezequiel Duran thing, Christopher Morel thing, which is I see ball, I swing at ball. He's swinging outside the zone almost 50% of the time right now. Inside of the zone, 81% of the time. And so things are going really well. He's making good zone contact, and he's swinging a lot in the zone, but he's also swinging a lot out of the zone. I think pitchers are going to start just saying, well, can you lay off of stuff that's out of the zone? And if he can't, then his strikeout rate goes back up and he becomes a real big issue. So pitchers are going to, he adjusted to pitchers. He went, well, I'm not going to be passive. I'm going to get aggressive and start swinging at things. Pitchers are going to adjust back. And can he readjust back once he is adjusted too? That is my concern with Tovar. I think that there could be some really ugly weeks coming back like we saw at the beginning of the season. So I think you can stream him for right now, especially at home. But once people start, catching up to him, pitchers start catching up to him, I think he might be a guy you end up having to drop or I'm looking at his home road splits. He's in 268 at home, 218 on the road. So a guy that at best you really want to just use at home.
Yeah, Ezequiel Tovar, shortstop for the Rockies. Still learning on the job, though, too, so give him a little bit of leeway there. Mm-hmm. Nick Senzel, our last one. I cut off the other two names there because we got to get going here. I still want to talk about some of those closers. Nick Senzel was picked up in the deeper leagues last week. Gave you 3 hits and a homer on the first day. You're like, yes, I'm a genius. Promptly went 2 for 20 or 2 for 19 with a walk the rest of the week. What do you think about Nick Senzel in the shallower formats? Is he worth pick? Obviously, didn't have a great week, but had been blazing hot before that. So we're not just judging off of last week, but are you in on him as a 12-team pickup after the 15-team pickups last week?
I think I am.
He's still playing.
He's still playing every day. He's picked up that third base eligibility, so now he's got third and outfield. The XBA is pretty good. making decent contact in the zone and not like being egregious in terms of swinging outside the zone, being more aggressive in the zone. I like some of the things. I'm not quite ready to be like, well, he's never going to be the guy we thought he could be.
Yeah, almost certainly not. Yeah.
But I do think that he can be, especially with that dual eligibility, infield, outfield. I think he can be a usable piece in 12 team leagues.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm rooting for Nick Senzel, man. I really do like him. I hope that he can be, but we'll see what happens. Got to stay healthy before anything's going to come together there. Let's talk about some of these closer potentials. I want to get your thoughts on where you're picking them up, what kind of viability you think they have. It might be short term. That's the thing. None of these are even the guy right now, or the one who is on the worst team in the universe. But let's start with Jason Adam. He's going to come out and try to get some saves here while Peter Fairbanks is out. And hey, that one's all you. You were out on Pete Fairbanks due to the health specifically. It's not that I didn't know that the health existed, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to gamble on him that maybe he finds a healthy year. But guys who get hurt consistently tend to keep doing it. So Pete Fairbanks out right now. It looks temporary. It's only supposed to be a couple weeks, but Adam looks like the guy. Where you going after him? Where do you like Adam? Can he overtake this job, et cetera, et cetera? What's your outlook on Jason Adam?
I think Fairbanks gets a job back once he's back healthy, and all the reports have been that this is not a serious injury. He's already playing catch, and that he should be back maybe even by the end of this week, but more than likely next week. Yeah. That being said, I have zero faith in Pete Fairbanks' health. I'm grabbing Adam anywhere I can, and I'm holding on to him. If people drop Jason Adam when Fairbanks comes back, I will be swooping in because I think it is just a matter of time before Pete Fairbanks is back on the IL. I think Jason Adam is a really, really good pitcher, and victory lap.
Well, breaking news there. Jason just texted Mason Miller in and out. Right elbow tightness for Mason Miller. Not great right now. We don't have anything further, so just putting that out. People will know about it by the time they listen to this, but it's breaking news to us right this minute. So
what did we say about him?
I mean, with him specifically, like, okay, if it happens to Bryce Miller or, Bybee or whatever, it's like, any pitcher can get hurt, but man, you really and again, this coming from the guy who says like, don't overrate injury risk relative or injury safety. Again, my point is always don't overrate injury safety. But even with somebody like Miller, the writing was on the wall, dude. He had 31 professional innings, so that was what made it so tough to bid like the crazy numbers with him.
But also, I think this is one of the reasons why like it's kind of crazy to bid huge amounts on any pitcher because you are
because they
one pitch away, from
absolutely, absolutely.
We didn't think Luis Garcia had. Yeah, we didn't think Luis Garcia had a chance of like. We thought like, he might be bad, but he's not going to be.
That's my point, though, too. Yeah. That underscores my point better. The Luis Garcia one. Oh, he's safe. He's been healthy. No, he's not. And so I'll reiterate that point. It's just that there is no such thing as safe. There are guys with heightened risk. Mason Miller definitely had it, and right now could be bad. All right, Michael King, another guy looking to get some saves here. Clay Holmes is not out, but he got the dreaded vote of confidence, which is basically the kiss of death. But he's still in the mix. But King is kind of getting the ninth right now. What did you think of the Yankees situation? Do you like Michael King? Did you get him anywhere?
I did. I grabbed Michael King in a couple leagues, especially where I only had like one kind of real closer and had been kind of filling in with guys that haven't been working out real well. So I think he could be really, really good. I also think that this isn't a set job for him where he is getting, 90% of the saves. I think he's probably getting like 60 to 70% of the saves, and then other guys fill in. We saw Ian Hamilton get a save. Clay Holmes will be kind of in the mix, but I think King gets the majority of them until the Yankees trade for someone at the deadline.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair there. I like Michael King a lot. Clay Holmes is not bad. Tough situation. Good team though too. So they can share some saves and both can still be fantasy viable. Mm-hmm. Here's the guy that it might be the A guy because they cut somebody. They cut Juris Familia, but Oakland, Zach Jackson, who gives a shit about the A guy in in freaking Oakland, though, right? He did get a save this weekend, and that's why he was picked up, and saves are saves. But what do you think of Zach Jackson in Oakland?
Oh, this totally burns me because I had picked up Zach Jackson for like $1 or $2 in a bunch of leagues, and then ended up dropping him last week only to
because Familia was doing because
Familia had gotten 2 saves, and there might only be 2 more saves left in Oakland. So this one kind of burned me a little bit, but I also wasn't willing to spend the price on what he went for this week because it's Oakland and they might only get 2 more saves. And I don't know for sure that Zach Jackson is the quote unquote dude because they like him to be in a multi-inning relief role at times. So like Sam Moll could get some work. They might like revive, Keith Folk or something. I don't know, like who might.
I mean, nightmare if it's a split, right? Because of how bad this team is. Like, you cannot think of a worse situation if they end up splitting it. Yeah, that's for sure.
And I mean, like maybe Trevor May comes back at some point, or Danny Jimenez, or like who the hell is Rico Garcia? I don't know, but he might get a save. I should have saved that one for reliever versus Congressman. That would have been you know what they should do is just put Shintaro Fujinami in the role since he is now their highest paid reliever. But
I mean, at least try to get something. You could try to have him close. I mean, that's the quickest way to lose some games, though, is to have him start throwing the ball all over the place. But it's something.
And the other day, Austin Pruitt was the answer on the MLB Wordle thing.
Oh wow!
It's called Pickle on the MLB app.
Yeah, MLB Pickle.
And that was just unfair. Like that. That's just mean. That was an option. Yeah, like I don't know how the only way you got that is if you cheated. I did not know Austin Pruitt was on the A's.
Yeah, I don't think I would have known that either. Last 2 guys here under the saves are saves type of deal too, because it's Mark Leiter Jr. I believe, didn't we talk about him on Friday, or am I crazy on that? Because
he got the save while we were recording.
Okay, so we
and then the next day
Fulmer,
and then the next day Albert Alzolay
got it.
Yeah,
has your outlook changed there from the weekend with Alzolay getting one, but then blowing the game on Sunday? Where do you currently stand? And I think Fulmer pitching like some early innings as well.
But he's pitched really well. I still stand by it.
Okay, so you still stand with Fulmer.
Honestly, I think this is just a hot potato. Like I think everybody's gonna get a save.
They're not good enough to hold, then, right? Like King Holmes, if they're splitting 50-50, I'm holding both in like any format pretty much. But if we're bouncing around Alzolay, Leiter Jr., Fulmer,
Boxberger,
yeah.
Even Julian Mayweather might get involved at some point.
Like, can you hold any of these guys then? Temporarily,
I've held. Yeah, I think you can hold for now, but like we saw Leiter go for some, expensive prices.
That's what I'm saying, dude. There were some numbers out there,
and that becomes a real problem because like maybe he gets 30% of the saves moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But like if the Cubs are in like contention, don't the Cubs go out and get someone at the deadline to just
you would think
lock down
to be like the guy, and then all these other guys are the bridge. I got to be honest, I'm a longtime Alzolay fan, so I wouldn't say that I'm like putting all my money behind him, but my hopes are behind him because I would like to see him.
Like somebody spent $195 on Leiter.
On Mark Leiter Jr.
Yeah.
Did they think it was Jack Leiter got called up in the Dynasty League? I can't even rationalize it with Jack Leiter.
Their team name is President Jesus. So I don't know. Maybe they
don't know what to take from that.
I don't either.
I don't either. But I will say this: I do have to get going because I got another spot coming up right after this, and we got to have Pierce Johnson, last guy under saves.
Don't care.
Saves. Okay, you don't. Not even the Colorado saves. Do you think Bard gets it back fully?
I think Bard gets it back at some point.
I think they're going to work him in. We might have even talked about Pierce Johnson recently too. I don't remember. Anyway,
those bad. Are the saves are saves. He's bad at pitching.
He is not good, yeah. And so I know Bard has struggled, but when Bard is right, he's quite good. And so even though it's Colorado, I think he's still the better guy. So there you go. There's your Week 7 key pickups. I'll be back probably in the middle of the week with something. I'm going to start working out some guests myself or solo, either or. But Justin, I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Take it easy.